Congratulations on your new home. Thank you so much for helping me with this property. You're welcome. Here's the keys to your new house. Awesome. Now I hope you have a wonderful life here, and if you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Actually, before you go, I keep forgetting to ask you about this, but there's like this huge stain in my bathroom, and I was wondering, is it something I should be worried about? I mean, I probably should have asked this question before I moved in and signed the contract, but I just kept forgetting. Well, that's where the last owner of the property met his violent end. What? Okay, bye! Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Freaky Friday. I am your host, Zakimi, and I am super excited to have you guys here joining me today. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a drink. Do you guys ever do this? Put one of these thermoses, call it like a freezer, to get it cold and then get like a really cold drink. In my case, tea. I just got off of work and it's getting hot in Okinawa, so this hits the spot. Okay. So these last two Freaky Friday videos, I've tackled scary Japanese customs. One custom was about turning your younger children into slaves, and the other custom was about burying people alive under large structures as a sacrificial ritual. I'll go ahead and leave the video links for that in the description below, so if you guys are interested in checking that out, go ahead after this video though, not right now. So today we're not really talking about scary customs or scary stories, but we are going to be talking about jiko bukken. In English would be like stigmatized properties. Jiko bukken is a property where someone passed away from unnatural causes like suicide, arson, murder, just something that's not natural. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I feel like jiko bukken is a really big part of Japanese horror stories. Like if you think about Ju-on or The Grudge, that whole movie was about a family that died of unnatural causes. Anybody who would step foot into that house would be cursed and eventually perish themselves. And I think it's just a very big part of Japanese horror culture, and I kind of wanted to take a look at it with you guys. Last year a movie came out called Jiko bukken Kowai Madori, which stars one of my aunt's favorite Japanese boy band stars from a band named KAT-TUN. This movie was based off of a book that was written by a Japanese comedian named Matsubara Tanishi. There's a whole backstory as to why he ended up doing this, and I'm not going to go into it because it's not really important to this video. But what makes Matsubara Tanishi's jiko bukken book so interesting is that he stayed in a lot of jiko bukkens all up and down Japan, and that's just what he does now. I think he still does it, where he just stays at jiko bukkens and he writes blogs and just stories about his experiences staying in these properties. Now, I'm not going to talk about the book or the movie too much because I didn't watch it and I didn't read it. It was basically what introduced me to the whole concept of jiko bukken. I mean, I've known of it, obviously, because I've seen Japanese horror movies, but I didn't really know it had a name. The more I researched it, the more interesting stuff I found, and so we're gonna go ahead and talk about that. So just like the States, if you were to buy or rent a property, a licensed real estate agent has to tell you the history of the property. I know in different states there's different time frames, but I know in California, if somebody passes away at a property, you have to disclose that somebody passed away for up to 3 years. And that's if anyone passed away for any reason. In Japan, you only have to disclose if the death was unnatural. And depending on whether you're going to rent or buy a property, the laws change just a little bit. For rental properties, the laws I think are a little bit more laxed. If something had happened in an apartment, the real estate agency is only required to tell the next tenant moving in. And because of this, I've actually heard where real estate agencies will actually put one of their employees in the apartment temporarily to kind of just fill that requirement of telling the next tenant, because once that employee, next tenant, moves out and another one moves in, like, the real estate agency is not required to tell that tenant that somebody had passed away 2 tenants before, which is super sketchy and super shady. But by moving their people in and meeting that next tenant rule, the next tenant that moves in, they could just rent it out for full market value. But when you're buying a property, there's no time limit on how long they're required to tell you, but most real estate agencies will let you know if it's been within 10 years. And I think the reason they will do this is because neighbors talk. right? Like apartments, people come in and come out. Neighborhoods in Japan are usually pretty well established, and most people who live in houses in Japan usually have lived there like multi-generationally. Oftentimes, if like a new family moves in, neighbors talk. They might as well disclose that somebody has passed away in that house, because some nosy neighbor somewhere is going to be like, oh my god, didn't you hear what happened? I can totally see that happening, which is why I think most real estate agents will be more likely to tell you if you're buying a jiko bukken rather than like renting a jiko bukken. They just don't want to get sued. So I'm sure you could probably guess what some of the cons are going to be of buying or renting a jiko bukken. Believe it or not, there is actually some pros. With any death, there's stigma, but I think with unnatural deaths, it's even more so. But the pro to renting or buying a jiko bukken is that the property is usually a quarter of the market value. And the more violent the incident, the cheaper the property is. And I think the most obvious con would be if you're sensitive to the supernatural or the idea of death, it might lend itself to be a very uncomfortable living situation. And if you purchase a jiko bukken and you decide to resell it in the future, just because of the stigma attached to a jiko bukken, it might be hard to resell. If the incident was violent enough, I've heard of properties that will stay on the market for a very, 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 very long time. Especially in Japan, because so many Japanese people are very superstitious. So there's a website called oshimaland.com. This website lists jiko bukkens all around the world. It'll tell you what house and how somebody passed away in it. We're going to go ahead and take a look at some jiko bukkens in Okinawa. So all the fire mark symbols is a jiko bukken. Now this house is actually near where my friend lives in Okinawa. And if you click on this fire, it'll show you the description of what happened to the person. I think this is a Japanese run website, so the description and everything is going to be in Japanese, but you could usually just easily Google translate it. You'll get the gist of what happened. But this property specifically says that somebody passed away from bodily injury, which usually means there was probably some kind of assault. So this property is actually located right behind the farmer's market that I frequent, and it lists the incident as somebody who committed suicide. And this is actually a hotel. So it's not just houses that they list. I also saw that there was a school somewhere. In this hotel, somebody got stabbed to death. It's really sad when you kind of look at this map, because to us, they're just little fire symbols. Every fire symbol is somebody that passed away, right? Somebody with a life, somebody with a family, possibly, but somebody who was alive with their own dreams, with their own passions, with their own, like, you know, just living their life. And most likely they passed away from causes they didn't even deserve, because they wouldn't be fire symbols if it wasn't some kind of unnatural death. It's a useful tool if you want to check out a property before you buy or rent. Keep in mind that this is a curated collection from people all around the world, so it's probably not going to be the most up to date. I don't know if you guys found this video interesting. I really did, because like I said in the beginning, jiko bukkens are a really big part of Japanese horror stories. So the subject of jiko bukken might not be the most scariest thing in the world, but I think it's important to understand what it is, because it ties in so much with Japanese horror stories and just Japanese horror genre in general. See, I don't know, like, I would like to think that it wouldn't bother me to live in one of these jiko bukken properties, but I have some pretty severe anxiety / PTSD from the time my dad and my grandma passed away, so I'm like very sensitive to death. Like, I wish I wasn't as sensitive as I am to the topic or the idea of it. I am. Like, I'm not going to be afraid to admit that. I definitely am. But it's not just about like being uneasy from like the thought of death or anything, but it's like the thought that somebody passed away from like some kind of unnatural causes and they might have suffered in their last moments. Like, that whole concept would just weigh so heavy on my heart, even if I didn't know the person. So I feel like I would just be thinking about it all the time as I was living in a jiko bukken and just like be sad all of the time. I wouldn't be able to handle it for sure. For me, I think ignorance would be bliss in situations like this. Although chances are I would probably feel it anyways, because I have a tendency to feel heaviness in the air when something bad has happened or is about to occur. I don't know, I'm gonna sound crazy, but I'm just really connected to those kind of energies. But feel free to tell me in the comment section below what y'all think. Do you think you could live in a jiko bukken? Or better yet, have you ever lived in a jiko bukken or a stigmatized property? If so, let us know your experience in the comment section below. Maybe if it's a good one, I can share your experience in an episode of Freaky Friday. That might actually be kind of fun. I can make a segment within a segment, so it'll be like the Freaky Friday jiko bukken series. Alright, so we're at the end of this video. That means this is the end. By the time I end up editing this video, it's only going to be like maybe less than 10 minutes long. But for me, this took an hour to record. I'm taking an hour's worth of footage with all the mistakes and condensing it into like a 10-minute or less cohesive video. So I've been sitting here for a long time and I had just gotten off of work and I need to go take a shower. So I'm gonna go. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Freaky Friday. If you guys like the topic of this video, please go ahead and hit that like button. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Most people don't realize how much the act of engaging with our content, leaving a comment, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, like all of that really makes a huge difference in the life of a YouTuber. Not just for my channel, but if you guys are watching any other YouTube out there, make sure to give them a like or a subscribe if you haven't. It means a lot. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in next week's Freaky Friday video. Love you guys. Peace. Bye.